Stop. Oh, hey there. Who doesn't like to stand in long lines? What? You? Really? Well, I cannot really fix lines like these, but my generative AI Discord bot has a second Recode, and it's fast. So fast that I had a huge dopamine kick after finishing it after 1 week of planning and another week of coding. And boy, I had difficulty sleeping tonight. Damn, it really paid off. It was so well made, and I absolutely am super excited to share this with you all. This stuff was genuinely so exciting that it lifted my spirit to join the forces that put the stars in the skies. Everything regarding to the queue has been fully recoded. For both beginners and nerds alike, I will try to explain it as best as I can. With that, let's take a dive in this peculiarity. Hey everyone, welcome to the Emerald Show. Special welcome to our Emerald Rock Candy Patreon subscribers. And how did you all sleep? Really? Well, that's just great. As mentioned before, I didn't sleep much at all, but that's fine. I really feel great. While I'm going to summarize previous video on the first Recode, I do recommend for those that want to get the full story to watch the previous video first. Link will be in the description below. In the previous video, we've mentioned the first Recode of the queue system. We basically created a very smart leader to reorder the queue to make sure that models don't have to load and unload as often as they normally do. To put up a simple example, if there are 4 people in the queue, one wants to do stable diffusion, the next wants to do deliberate or some other model, then the third wants to do stable diffusion again, and the fourth wants to do deliberate again. In a normal sense, in the old version of the bot, what happens is that the first one gets executed, the second one gets executed after the first one is unloaded, which means that there's already 2 load and unload phases with very heavy I/O, very heavy disk activity, very heavy internet activity, overall pretty expensive. Then the third one, of course, does the same thing as the first, just with a different prompt, and he will also have to wait and have to see everything load and unload again before his eyes. With the first Recode, we introduced a very smart leader that will reorder the queue based on what people have chosen. So person 1 and 3 will become the first 2, and then person 2 and 4 will become the last. In this particular case, the bot only has to load and unload twice. Collectively, everyone finishes faster, meaning that we can serve more people. Overall, a very nice advantage to have, especially if you run unlimited hardware with a lot of models. And boy, do we have many. Recently, we introduced the ability to train your own models, and we also introduced audio models.
Thank you for having me on the Emerald Show.
With more to come. So being fast in loading and unloading these models counts a lot towards a positive user experience and a fast bot. Now this queue has been running for quite a while, I think around 3 months, and it's doing great. However, there's a new peculiarity around the block, which is Deployed IF. And this one is special. And I wanted to adapt the queue system to this model, but also make it future-proof enough to work with other models too. So while Deployed IF is like Stable Diffusion and image generation AI, it's hugely different. For example, it's running in 3 stages. Each stage creates a bigger image than the last, with the first stage creating an absolutely tiny image of 64 by 64 pixels, which then gets passed on to the next, which then starts creating a bigger image. This Deployed AI will run similarly to other models, but there is one huge difference here, is that internally it starts loading a stage, stage 1, then unloading that stage and passes the data onto stage 2, and then unloading that stage and loading then the next stage, and then unloading stage 2, passing it on to stage 3. Even if users are aligned next to each other perfectly and they all do deployed, between them it will still load and unload 3 times. Which means that if even 2 users choose to do deployed at the same time, it will have to unload 6 times. That is a lot. So this whole queue Recode doesn't really matter anymore because it doesn't do much anymore. Of course, there are 2 very quick methods to solve this. One would be to split up the 3 stages into 3 separate commands, but this would of course be very ugly because
nobody really wants 64 pixel images.
There's no real reason to get these, so manually that would be very hard for a user to kind of comprehend. The second most easiest option would be to recode the interface alone to include some kind of subtask where we display the 3 stages as one. This of course is a great idea, but it involves recoding the interface based on an older and obsolete architecture. I figured I'm gonna recode the whole thing. So for 2 weeks I've been working on this. The first week was only planning, the second week was only coding. Overall, it went pretty well, and I am so happy with the results, and I'm so glad to share these with you. So let's take a look. At the heart of this second queue recode lies a tool called the queue runner. And this queue runner is composed of 2 main ingredients. The first one is Gina's Docker array, which is very nice for its multi-model capabilities. The second main ingredient is Redis, which is a database known for its distributed nature and in-memory capabilities. Now what happens is that when the user sends a command through the Discord bot, is that it gets put into Redis by the bot itself, and the queue runner independently can check what is running, but can also see what other things are running because the Redis database gives access to all of that information. We can see what's in the queue, what's running, what's timing out, and based on that we can reorder the queue. Now internally this does make for a very fast queue system, but it doesn't actually fix the problem with Deepfloyd yet, or other AI models that might run the same way. So what we did next is basically what I said in the beginning. I did recode the interface for the queue as well, but since we now work in a completely new and different architecture, it was much easier to do because I didn't have to apply it to legacy software. What happens now is that an entry in the queue can have 1 or more different scripts. And these different scripts automatically pass the output of the former script to the next while merging with the original input from the user. This all happens automatically, which means that you don't have to code anything for that. All you have to do is code the different stages, add the thingy worker system to it, and you're good to go. It automatically loads and unloads scripts. Benchmarks have shown that it's going really well. And during my stream, I even managed to run the whole thing while streaming on GPU faster than I did before. Let that sink in. That is really, really fast. There is, however, one big downside. Because of its distributed nature, it is very hard to determine what your position is in the queue, since execution is unpredictable. We do have some kind of simulation which gives you a rough estimate, but it's not guaranteed. But it's really a small price to pay because it's so fast right now that they even limited the restriction of 1 command in the queue per member. And for Deepfloyd, I even quadrupled the outputs that it can generate before it's passing on to the next user. So quite literally, this is why I codenamed the next thing you release as All You Can Make, because that's definitely what you can do. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoy. I am glad that you're here. I'm glad to share this wonderful passion with you guys. And of course, if you can and you really like my work, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon, where you can sponsor my work, where you get to be the first in line to see feature requests, instant updates, and even a 50% discount if I make something paid related to AI. But of course, everything will be open source. The thingy source code has already been updated on GitHub. However, the README might be out of date. So if you have any problems to run it, feel free to contact me. You can also instantly see it working in my server. Link is in the description below. And of course, by subscribing to my Patreon, you help me to do more research like this in networking. We have done so much in the past and we're going to do so much in the future, train new models. We have released models like Leap. We're training new models right now. We have released this huge queue recode, which I would classify as network research, especially related to Deepfloyd, but nevertheless, the software is very flexible, so no doubt will be future-proof. Thanks a lot, and let's make some makers. Bye for now.
There's nothing running at the moment, and this is what I hear. So I'm pretty sure someone broke the bot.